Throughout time, people across the world told each other tales of how they came to be, of heroes and monsters, romance and tragedy, death and rebirth. Mythology helped shape the ancient world, explaining the unexplainable. This is Mythology Unleashed. Long ago, in the Isles of India, lived a Sassanid king who had two sons, Shahryar and Shah-Zaman, who both grew to be powerful warriors, and eventually wise and just kings. One day, Shahryar invited his younger brother to visit him in his kingdom. After a few hours upon the road to Shahryar's kingdom, Shah-Zaman realized he had forgotten something and turned back home to retrieve it. Upon returning home to Samarkand, the king walked into his bedchamber, only to find the sight of his wife in bed with one of the servants. Heartbroken and enraged, Shah-Zaman slew them both. He continued on his way to his brother's kingdom, but what he saw made him more and more depressed. This depression levied itself in a way, when one day he noticed while his brother was away hunting, Shahryar's wife and 10 of his concubines were having an orgy with a handful of servants. When Shahryar returned from his hunting trip, Shah-Zaman proceeded to tell his brother of what had happened to him back home and of his wife's infidelity. It was not until Shahryar witnessed for himself his wife and concubines fornicating with the same servants. Grief-stricken, Shahryar condemned his wife, his concubines, and all of their lovers to execution. Embittered by his wife's betrayal and of the transgression of his brother's wife, Shahryar proclaimed that no woman could ever be trusted. Over the next 3 years, Shahryar consecutively married a succession of virgins and executed them the following morning, before they could have the chance to betray him. It was a dark time in the kingdom of Shahryar. Hundreds of women were executed, families were leaving by the score, and the king was losing the support of his subjects as his mind delved deeper into madness. The king's vizier, wise and loyal to his lord, was in grave trouble. In addition to having to watch his lord rend the empire and himself asunder, he could find no more virgins for the king to marry. It was his duty to find his king a bride, and should he fail in any of his duties, it would mean his head. The vizier hung his head. It was hopeless. But then, his daughter, Scheherazade, came in to console him. Knowing of his plight, Scheherazade volunteered to marry the king, if only to save her father's life. The vizier was mortified. He could not bear to let his daughter be killed, but nor could he fail in his duties to the king. His hands were tied. But Scheherazade boasted not only great beauty and great courage, she was crafty. She devised a plan that would both save her life, her father's life, and help King Shahryar. On the very next day, Scheherazade and Shahryar were married. On the night of their union, as the king was about to lie with his new bride, tears filled her eyes. Scheherazade explained to him that she knew she would be executed come morning, and wished to see her sister, Dunyazad, one last time. Shahryar, mad though he may have been, was not without a heart, and he permitted the sisters to be together. Dunyazad, who was in on the plan, requested Scheherazade tell them a story.
Will your highness permit me to tell a story, as my sister asks?
The king obliged, excited to hear this story. And so Scheherazade told her sister and her new husband a story. The story captivated both members of her audience. But when the sun rose, Scheherazade withheld the ending of her story. She told her husband that she would conclude the story that very night, if he would allow it. Shahryar, eager to hear the rest of the story, agreed to the terms. He could always execute her when the story was finished. So the following night, Scheherazade finished her story, but proceeded to tell the king a new story, which he was of course eager to listen to. And just as the night before, she omitted the ending to be told the following night. And so this went on for a time, story after story, fable after fable. And oh, the stories she told him, historical and fantastical, of far-off lands, of kings and queens, thieves and beggars, romances and tragedies, poetry and erotica. Fables of magic and mystery, monsters and ghouls, wicked sorcerers and powerful jinn, of ebony horses and talking birds. She told him the thrilling tale of Ali Baba and the 40 Thieves.
Open Sesame!
The comical story of the death of a hunchback. The robust 7 voyages of Sinbad the Sailor. The enchanting tale of Aladdin and the wonderful lamp. Some stories, like the 3 apples and the fisherman and the jinn, would even contain stories within the stories recounted by the characters. And King Shahryar seemed to never grow tired of hearing these never-ending stories. This pattern of beginning stories one night, ending them the next, only to begin a new one, went on consecutively for 1001 nights. When Scheherazade finally finished her storytelling, she had birthed 3 sons with her husband. Shahryar's madness had finally lifted, and his kingdom was finally healing. Scheherazade was pardoned from the original cruel fate Shahryar had intended for her. For her storytelling, her wit and charm had absolved him of his pain, and assuaged the anger built up in his heart towards womankind. She was declared a woman unlike any other, pure of heart and intention, and ingenious. Shahryar proceeded to bestow honors upon his entire court, and held a weeks-long feast for all of his subjects, rich and poor, to begin to mend his relationship with them. He soon called upon his brother, Shah Zaman, and regaled him with the events of the past few years. Shah Zaman, like his brother, had a great change of heart, and wished to make amends for his past deeds, to make for a brighter future. Shah Zaman went on to marry Dunyazad. The vizier father of Scheherazade and Dunyazad became the viceroy of Samarkand, and the 2 brothers, with their ingenious wives, jointly ruled Shahryar's kingdom, with wisdom and peace, for many years to come. In time, Shah Zaman related to the chroniclers his story and of the stories told to him by Scheherazade. These were written down and became known as 1001 Nights, and one day would be called the Arabian Nights.